Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is James, continuing on with this Balsa USA Smoothie build. And in the last video of this series that I did, I was attaching the main landing gear up here. And in this video, I'm going to finish up with the landing gear by attaching the tail wheel assembly. Now, let me show you what I'm going to do. So this is basically in the instructions. You use this little plate right here, this little plywood plate, kind of make a little plate out of it, like right you see here. You drill a couple holes in it, here and here, and then that screws down on top of the tail section, like right about here. And then you drill a hole through that, and through that you feed or put in the landing gear wire, which is going to sit on here like this. Now, as I mentioned in the last video, I'm not going to use this landing gear wire, and the reason I'm not going to use it is because you'll see that it does not have a dog leg built into it, and I mentioned this before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a new piece of wire. I got another piece of wire here that I got from my hobby shop, and I'm going to put a little dog leg in the wire so that I can kind of make the wheel on center with the rudder and such. Okay, and one thing real quick is I did want to mention that the other thing I didn't mention here was just, and this is pretty common, is how the wire for the tail wheel plugs into the rudder. We're basically just going to drill a hole in the rudder, and then we're also going to make a little sort of like a little channel for it, and we'll just push that wire directly into the rudder like that. Probably glue it in with some epoxy. So you can see I got this little mounting plate now attached, and the next step is going to be to go ahead and bend my new piece of wire for the tail wheel wire. And right now it kind of fits kind of tight, and I'm probably going to have to make that hole a little bit bigger, because what's going to happen is, just like with the original build, when you kind of go through here, you have to be able to make the turn, you know, kind of go around the angle to get it in there. And I may have to make the hole a little bit wider in order for that to happen, but that's okay. It'll work out. So then, obviously, this is going to go down here. The rudder will be down here, like that, and then this wire will plug into it. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead now and bend a new piece of wire for the wheel. Okay, well, this is a piece of music wire or piano wire. It comes in different diameters if you're not familiar with it. Now, this stuff is actually pretty tough. I guess it's hardened, and it doesn't flex or doesn't bend very easily. In fact, it's kind of brittle, really. You could bend it a couple times and it can snap. But that's a good thing. Actually, it's good for the tail gear, or actually landing gear in general, because it's pretty stiff and it keeps its shape and it can withstand a lot of use. But the problem with that is that it's hard to actually bend. So what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to start with the wheel side, and I'm going to give myself some room to work with. So I'm going to probably put a bend about a 90-degree angle right here. I'm going to try to just basically copy this one. I'm just going to put a dog leg in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off camera, and I'm going to put this in a vise, and I'm going to kind of hammer this over to get a nice kind of 90-degree angle if I can. I can use pliers and vice grips, but sometimes you can kind of it's hard to get like a really nice bend in it, at least for me. I don't have one of those little tools. There's like, they make these little piano wire kind of bending tools. You can pick those up at some hobby suppliers. I don't have one of those. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my pliers and a vise and such, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting some angles in here. Okay, well, you can see here I have the wire in the vise here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a hammer, and I'm going to just go ahead and kind of tap it over. Oops, down here. You can kind of hear how strong that wire is, right? I'm just going to try to get a good 90-degree angle in this. Oop, so I got to go a little further. All right, so that's pretty good right there. Now you can see kind of how hard that was, and the problem I'm going to have, which is typical, is once I start doing the other bends, I can't put everything in the vise. So I just kind of wanted to show you this. And again, you could do this with pliers and vice grips, but it's a little more difficult. Okay, so I got that 90-degree in there about, and the wheel will go on like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark where I want to kind of start the dog leg, which would be, I don't know, somewhere right about here. Pen's not very good. There it is right there. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and use my pliers now, and I'm going to try to bend this. All right, so I'm going to use my smaller guys. And I know that. There's probably other ways to do this. Again, they do make little tools for bending wire like this, so I don't have one, so I'm kind of doing it the caveman way. But I'm sure I'll get some comments with some good tips on this. So put that like that. Now I'm going to bring this. Problem with doing it like this is that you can put a curve in it. Okay. All right, so something like that, hopefully. Okay, well, it's getting there. All right, so now I need to put kind of this little, figure out where I want to put my bend in here. But before I do that, actually I'll draw on here real quick my line. Okay, well, before I put my next bend in there, I'm going to put my collar on, or a retainer, whatever you call this thing. Because if I put the bend in it and then try to get the collar over it, it'll be hard for it to kind of go around those bends. So I'm going to put it on now. And now what I need to do is put about a 45-degree angle bend in here. So right about there. Something right about there. Well, it still makes that curve, so that's good. Yeah, so this is going to be sitting like this, doing that. All right, so now I'll do my next bend. I think my final bend, really. And it'll be right about there. Again, doesn't have to be precise, just has to be functional. And this will end up being another 90-degree bend right here. So about there. Okay, so it's going to look sort of like this right here. It's going to plug into there like that. Then this little guy is going to be up against that little plate to kind of keep it from holding in place. I did put it right here, and I actually bent it thinking that it was going to be in this little section, but actually it's going to be in this section, so it's okay. It makes it through the little bend here. But obviously it's not going to make it around a 90-degree. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and just cut off this one end. This will be the one that plugs into the rudder. And I'll just go ahead and use the old one as a guide. Right about there. I'm just going to go ahead and use my Proxon on this. Okay, and then for the wheel side, I'll put this guy on here, and I'm just going to use my little collar. And I'll just give myself a little bit of room to work with. Okay, I'll just cut this little piece off now. Okay, so there's our new tail wheel wire, and hopefully it's now kind of more in line. The center of the wheel will be more in line with the center of the rudder. And let's go ahead and put it up here and kind of see how it looks. Okay, so we'll feed this through here. And it'll be something like that. And where's my rudder? Here's the rudder. Okay, so then the rudder will plug in on here like this. Okay, so I'm going to put a piece of tape on here just so that I can draw where I want to put the hole. Being that this is black, it's kind of hard to see. All right, so to make things a little bit easier on myself, I went and I just taped the rudder on in its position. And then what I can do now is I'll hold this tail wheel kind of right where it needs to go. And I'll just get this line marked on here. It doesn't have to be perfect because, again, the tail wheel can move up and down a little bit, so. All right, so that's where the hole will be. Okay, so now we're going to have the hole will be right about there. All right, so I did a little bit of fiddling around with it to get it to work all right. So I'll put this guy back in here. And this guy will plug on here. This. And of course the hinges are going to be in there, and the rudder is going to sit off of the back a little bit. Obviously it's going to be a little bit of a gap in there. But it'll essentially be just like this. Okay. And then what I'll do is, before I get it, I'll probably have to do a little bit of tweaking to the wire itself to make sure it's lined up. But I think it looks pretty good. Okay, well there we are. Just taped the rudder on just to kind of show it how it is completed. I will have to tweak a little bit the wire. It's not perfectly lined up, but I'll go ahead and I'll make some adjustments to that. And then here, just for comparison purposes, here's the sort of the original wire that would be like right about here somewhat. So it's about the same size. So, you know, once again, this is just my personal preference to do this to the tail wheel wire to kind of put that little dog leg in it. If you use the one that comes with a kit, that'll work probably fine also. Have no problem with that. And you can even, if you didn't like this little plate they give you here, you could probably just go buy like a 40 size, like a 40 class tail wheel assembly if you wanted to do it that way. And again, on the front I use the solid landing gear, and what comes with the kit, that kind of wire frame landing gear, that's perfectly fine also. I just prefer this. So my next video on this is going to be to hinge everything. And yeah, I'm just kind of moving along. I'm going to do the hinge. I'm going to hinge all the control surfaces. I got to put the canopy on, and then start putting all the guts in it and get this thing finished up. All right, so thanks for watching my channel. I always appreciate it, and we will see you next time.